Time now to take a second look at the morning papers. Here with me reviewing them this morning are the journalist and author Yasmin Alibhai-Brown and the editor-in-chief of nationalworld.com, Nancy Fielder. So welcome back to both of you. We're diving inside this hour, aren't we? And Yasmin, you're kicking us off with a double-page spread in The Express with a focus on what they describe as eco-yobs. So what does this article tell us?
Earlier, when we were doing the first paper reviews, we talked about climate change and the need to take quite urgent action. And I said then that we know that, and yet we don't want to change. And this Express story is a perfect example of that. You know, the people who do want to take action or to persuade us that we should be doing stuff in a very peaceful way, actually. They're not got guns and they're not stabbing anybody, suddenly become extremists and yobs, and they're ruining our lives. And you know what? If I was any younger, actually, older people are part of this protest in quite an impressive way. I would take to the streets. We have to do something. And to demonize people who take this urgently really seems to me wrong.
And yet, I guess, Nancy, it will strike a chord with some people who might have been at the Ashes or might have been at the Chelsea Flower Show or might have been at the first night of the proms last night that have got interrupted. They may feel frustrated and think some of them might agree with the message, but they don't really like the way that it's being communicated to people. I mean, what do you think about this?
Yes, that's right. I mean, they interrupted the nuclear crucible. They're targeting everything that's high profile. But why are they doing that? Because nobody's listening. We don't have to put up with this. We don't have to call them yobs. We could actually do what they're asking for. It shouldn't really be on a group of protesters and campaigners to have to cause trouble. They feel they have to do it. You might argue that they don't. But who else is doing enough to stop them? Let's not stop. You don't need to stop them by arresting them. You could stop them by doing what they're asking for, and all they're asking for is that the country and the world works together, particularly big industry, particularly governments, to take action so that all the many, many impacts that are impacting our lives that are not by protest but are because of a climate crisis, all the people who are dying, all the many, many problems that we discussed earlier, we could stop it by targeting those instead of targeting. They don't want to do this any more than we want them to, any more than people want to have their events spoiled. But we could treat it a different way. We could take some action.
Well, yes, I think they're calling mainly for the government to stop licensing all new oil, gas and coal projects, aren't they? Which is a debate that is being had about, how we get our energy in future and how quickly we wean ourselves off fossil fuels. But anyway, we can't really go into all of that now. We haven't got time. We've got to crack on with the papers, haven't we? Let's move on to The Guardian, Nancy, because there's an article here. We've done an interview this morning about it, about councils wanting to ban disposable vapes.
Yeah, so an element of this is connected to they're not very recyclable, you find them littered everywhere. But actually, as a mom, I just find it absolutely terrifying that smoking isn't seen as cool, but so many children, so many young teenagers who would never consider smoking a cigarette are effectively becoming addicted to these. They are bright coloured, they smell nice, they are targeted at our young children, and children have been hospitalised with lung problems because of this. So it's a double impact. They're really bad for the environment, but somehow we've let this addiction take over our children again, and it's really, really unhealthy. I mean, it feels like when you look back at the adverts for the cigarettes and how cool they were back in the day, decades ago, we're allowing exactly the same thing to happen, and there hasn't been any action at this point. So this is interesting because it's coming from councils demanding action, but already in Europe and France, they're looking at banning these kind of things. So it's interesting. We seem to be coming to it a bit slow because my 17-year-old said to me the other day, fortunately, he doesn't vape. Well, it tells me he doesn't. I'm sure he doesn't. But he said, Mum, everybody does it. And we've just accepted that, and we've let a generation down, I think.
Well, yeah, they're worried. I think France has already got a ban coming in. The EU's considering it, and I think they are worried about kind of loads of vapes flooding this market. But quickly, Nancy, the vaping industry would say, but they do help smokers quit. Potentially, it's a lot less bad for you than smoking, and the litter from smoking is also worse. That's what they would say.
But they aren't made colourful and given a certain taste that are childish taste to help smokers, aren't they? They're deliberately targeting children. I have no problem with make them dull, make them boring, and help people who genuinely want to stop smoking. But that's an adult problem. I think the main problem here is that we're bringing up generations who are going to be addicted to this, and they're deliberately targeting them. There's no getting around it. It's great to stop smoking, but to actually start vaping when you were never a smoker is really not a good thing.
Okay, let's turn to politics now, Yasmin, because there's an article in The Times suggesting that the Defence Secretary is considering quitting government. I think there's somewhere in the article it suggests he might even be quitting politics. Is that right? Or anyway, talk me through the story.
Yeah, this is really surprising because I think 3 polls that I've looked at in the last fortnight have shown that he's top when it comes to public opinion, the most popular Conservative politician, beating everybody, particularly our Prime Minister. And I'm really surprised by this. That Biden wasn't keen on him getting the NATO job, but that he would consider quitting when he's considered really one of the more respectable members of the cabinet. And with the war in Ukraine, he said something a bit kind of off last week about Zelensky not thanking them enough and thinking this is weapon suppliers are Amazon. But actually, on the whole, he has been efficient, good and quite decent as a politician. So it's a surprise. Maybe Rishi finds him a little bit of a threat.
Well, it's really interesting. There's thought to be an autumn reshuffle brewing, isn't there? So we'll see what does actually happen. But yeah, interesting to see whether or not Ben Wallace does stay or go. Nancy, Prosecco under threat. This is according to, what paper is it? The Mail.
Yeah, so I mean, this is back to the climate crisis. This is back to temperatures and back to the whole thing about actually, if you're personally impacted, do you take the sort of massive climate global issue more seriously? And this is a thing that will strike dread into the hearts of many of us this weekend. They are struggling with the mountainside vineyards where the grapes are grown to produce the Prosecco, and saying that actually if action isn't taken, Prosecco could disappear. It's not just Prosecco, though. There are certain and very nice types of red wine that could also go. So again, I think it's that personal impact. Is that what it needs for people to take action? Are we going to be more bothered that Prosecco disappears than that our favourite events are disrupted? It all ties into the same thing at the end of the day.
Yeah, really interesting, and really interesting to see whether industries change, whether grapes are grown in Britain more, and all sorts of things could change with weather patterns adapting and changing. We are out of time, but Yasmin and Nancy, I'm very pleased to say that you'll both be back in the next hour, so we'll see you again then. Thanks for now, and don't go anywhere. We've got lots coming up here on Sky News Breakfast. All the top stories next.